The alarm bells rang through the deep space research ship Meridian. Captain Lisa Martinez rushed to the bridge, her boots echoing in the metal hallways. The red warning lights flashed on every wall as she reached her command chair. "What do we have, Charlie?" she asked the communications officer. Charlie Wilson turned from his station, his face pale. "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal. It's coming from about 2 miles away. The signal is weak, but it's definitely not human." Lisa felt her heart skip a beat. In her 15 years of deep space exploration, she had never encountered alien life. The signal meant they might be looking at first contact with another species. "Can you clean up the signal?" she asked. "Working on it now, Captain." Charlie's fingers moved quickly over his controls. After a few minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It was female, speaking in broken English with a strange accent. "Help. Please help. Ship dying. I am alone. Please." The bridge fell silent. Everyone stared at the speakers as the voice repeated the same words over and over. "Charlie, get me Dr. Kevin Brooks and Amy Harrison up here right now," Lisa ordered, "and tell Jake Murphy to prepare a rescue team." Within minutes, the ship's chief medical officer and xenobiologist arrived on the bridge. Dr. Brooks was a tall man with gray hair who had spent most of his career treating human patients in space stations. Amy Harrison was younger, with bright eyes that showed her excitement at the possibility of meeting alien life for the first time. "Have you been able to locate the source?" Amy asked, moving to the science station. "Yes, it's a small craft, maybe the size of a shuttle," Charlie replied. "But the design is nothing like anything in our databases. The metal looks strange, almost like it's alive." Lisa made her decision quickly. "Jake, take a team over there. Bring whoever is on that ship back here. Dr. Brooks, prepare the medical. Bay, Amy, set up the containment area just in case." Security Chief Jake Murphy nodded. He was a former military man who never took chances with unknown threats. "Captain, what if this is some kind of trap?" "Then we deal with it," Lisa said firmly. "But someone is asking for help and we're going to give it." The rescue took 30 minutes. Jake returned with his team carrying a stretcher covered by a white sheet. Lisa could see a small form underneath. They moved quickly to the medical bay where Dr. Brooks was waiting with his equipment. When they pulled back the sheet, everyone in the room gasped. The being on the stretcher was clearly female and humanoid, but her skin was pale blue like winter ice. Her hair was long and silver, flowing like liquid metal. She was breathing, but barely. "She's alive," Dr. Brooks said, running his scanner over her body. "But her body temperature is incredibly low. I'm reading -40 degrees Celsius. She should be dead." The alien woman's eyes opened slowly. They were a deep purple color, like the space between stars. She looked around the room with confusion and fear. Where am I?" she whispered in that same strange accent. "You're safe," Lisa said, stepping forward. "We received your distress call. I'm Captain Martinez. What's your name?" "Zara," the woman replied weakly. "I am Zara of the Catherian Empire. My people. They are all dead." Dr. Brooks moved closer with his medical instruments. "I need to examine you to make sure you're not injured." "No!" Zara suddenly sat up, her eyes wide with terror. "Do not touch me. You will die if you touch me." "It's okay," Dr. Brooks said calmly. "I'm a doctor. I won't hurt you." Before anyone could stop him, he reached out to place his hand on her arm to comfort her. The moment his skin made contact with hers, something terrible happened. Dr. Brooks froze solid in an instant. His body turned to ice, his face locked in surprise. The temperature in the room dropped so fast that everyone could see their breath. Frost began forming on the walls and equipment. "Nobody move!" Jake shouted, drawing his weapon even though he had no idea what to shoot at. Amy backed away slowly, her scientific mind trying to process what she had just witnessed. His cellular structure, it's been instantly frozen at the molecular level. Zara looked at the frozen form of Dr. Brooks, with horror and sadness. "I warned him," she whispered. "I told him not to touch me. Everyone I touch dies this way." 3 medical technicians who had been in the room tried to help Dr. Brooks. They grabbed his frozen body to move him, and the moment they made contact, they too turned to ice. In seconds, the medical bay contained 4 frozen statues that had once been living people. "Everyone out," Lisa ordered. "Seal this section of the ship." The remaining crew members fled the medical bay. Emergency doors slammed shut, trapping Zara inside with the frozen bodies. Lisa could see her through the observation window, sitting alone on the medical bed, tears flowing down her blue cheeks. "What kind of weapon is this?" Jake demanded. "Is she some kind of biological weapon?" "I don't think she's a weapon," Amy said quietly. "Did you see her face when Dr. Brooks froze? She was horrified. I think this happens against her will." Lisa activated the communication system to talk to Zara through the sealed door. "Zara, can you hear me?" The alien woman looked up at the observation window. "Yes, Captain Martinez. Need to understand what happened here. Can you explain why people freeze when they touch you?" Zara was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was filled with centuries of loneliness. "My people were not always this way. Long ago we were normal like you. We could touch each other, hold each other, love each other." She paused, looking at her own hands with disgust. "Then the Void Seekers came. They attacked our worlds with weapons that changed us. The survivors developed this curse as a defense against them. We can freeze anything we touch, but we can never turn it off." "Void Seekers?" Amy asked through the communicator. "Ancient machines that destroy entire star systems," Zara explained. "They consume everything, planets, stars, life itself. They turned my people into weapons that could never embrace their own children or comfort their dying friends." Lisa felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Are these Void Seekers still out there?" "Yes," Zara said, her voice barely a whisper. "And they are coming here. They follow the energy signatures of living worlds. Your planet, your people, they are all in danger." The bridge crew looked at each other with growing fear. They had rescued one alien woman, but in doing so they had learned about a threat that could destroy humanity. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked. "I have been running from them for 50 years, Zara replied. "They are slow, but never stop. Based on the energy readings from your systems, I would say you have maybe 6 months before they reach your homeworld." Jake paced back and forth, his military mind working on the problem. "What can we do? How do we fight machines that can destroy star systems?" "My people tried to fight them for 300 years, Zara said sadly. "We developed this freezing ability as a weapon against them, but we could never get close enough to use it effectively. The Void Seekers would consume us before we could touch them." Amy suddenly spoke up. "Captain, someone needs to make direct contact with her. We need to understand her abilities better if we're going to have any chance against this threat." "Absolutely not," Jake said immediately. "We've already lost 4 people. No one else goes near her." But even as he spoke, a young voice came from the back of the group. "I'll do it." Everyone turned to see Lieutenant Danny Walsh, the ship's youngest engineer. He was only 25 years old, known for being brave to the point of recklessness. "Danny, no," Lisa said firmly. "I won't lose." Another crew member. "Captain, if what she's saying is true, then we're all going to die anyway when these Void Seekers arrive," Danny replied. "Someone has to take the risk to learn how to fight them." Through the observation window, they could see Zara watching them argue. She pressed her hand against the glass and frost immediately spread from her palm across the surface. "Please," she called out, "do not sacrifice yourselves for me. I have been alone for 50 years. I can remain alone." But Danny was already moving toward the sealed door. Danny Walsh stood at the sealed door, his hand hovering over the control panel. Captain Martinez grabbed his arm to stop him. "Danny, I'm ordering you to stand down," she said firmly. "We can't afford to lose anyone else." "Captain, with respect, we can't afford not to try," Danny replied. "If these Void Seekers are really coming for Earth, then we need to understand what we're dealing with. Zara is our only source of information about them." Through the observation window, they could see Zara sitting alone among the frozen bodies of the crew members. She looked small and sad, like someone who had carried a terrible burden for far too long. Amy Harrison stepped forward. "Danny, even if you survive the freezing somehow, we don't know what other dangers she might pose. Her biology is completely unknown to us." "That's exactly why someone needs to make contact," Danny said. "Look at her. She's not a monster. She's scared and alone, and she's trying to warn us about something that could wipe out humanity." Jake Murphy shook his head. "This is suicide, kid. You saw what happened to Dr. Brooks. He turned to ice in less than a second." Danny looked at each of them, then back at Zara through the window. "Maybe, but someone has to try. And if I die, at least you'll know for sure that humans can't survive contact with her." Before anyone could stop him, Danny pressed the door control. The seal broke with a hiss of escaping air, and the temperature in the hallway immediately dropped several degrees. "Danny, no!" Lisa shouted, but he was already stepping through the doorway. Zara looked up in alarm as Danny entered the medical bay. The frozen forms of Dr. Brooks and the three technicians stood like ice sculptures around the room, their faces locked in expressions of surprise and pain. "Please leave," Zara said quickly. "I do not want to kill you too. I have killed enough people already." Danny walked slowly toward her, his hands visible and empty. "My name is Danny Walsh. I'm here to help you, not to hurt you." "You cannot help me," Zara replied sadly. "No one can help me. Everyone I touch dies. I am cursed to be alone forever." "Tell me about your people," Danny said, continuing to approach. Despite her warnings, "Tell me about the Void Seekers." Zara's purple eyes filled with tears. "My people, the Catherians, were once a beautiful civilization. We built cities of crystal and light that stretched across 17 worlds. We were artists, scientists, philosophers. We believed in peace and cooperation." Danny was now only a few feet away from her. He could feel the cold radiating from her, body like standing near an open freezer. "What changed?" he asked gently. "The Void Seekers found us 300 years ago," Zara continued. "They came from the dark spaces between galaxies, machines older than most stars. They consumed our outer worlds first, turning everything into empty space. Our fleets tried to fight them, but conventional weapons were useless." She looked at her own hands with disgust. "In desperation, our scientists created a biological weapon. They changed our genetic structure to give us the power of absolute zero. We could freeze anything we touched, turn matter itself into ice. It was supposed to be temporary just until we defeated the machines." "But you couldn't turn it off," Danny said. "No," Zara whispered. "The change was permanent. And worse, it spread to everyone on our worlds. In trying to save ourselves, we became monsters who could never touch another living being again." Danny extended his hand toward her. "Zara, I want to help you, but I need you to trust me." "No," she said desperately. "You will die like the others. I cannot bear to kill another innocent person." "Maybe I will die," Danny admitted. "But maybe I won't. The only way to find out is to try." On the other side of the observation window, the remaining crew members watched in horror as Danny reached toward Zara. Lisa had her hand on the emergency button, ready to flood the room with knockout gas if necessary. "Please," Zara begged. "I have been alone for 50 years. I can be alone for 50 more. Do not throw your life away for me." "You don't have to be alone anymore," Danny said softly. "Let me try to help you." Their hands were inches apart now. Zara was trembling, not from cold but from fear and hope warring in her heart. She had not touched another living being since the day her homeworld died. "I want to," she whispered. "I want to so badly, but I am afraid." "So am I," Danny said honestly. "But sometimes being brave means doing something even when you're scared." Very slowly, their fingers touched. Nothing happened. Danny's hand remained warm and alive. His skin didn't turn to ice. His heart kept beating. He smiled at Zara, whose purple eyes were wide with amazement. "How?" she breathed. "How is this possible?" Outside the medical bay, Amy Harrison was frantically checking her instruments. "Captain, his life signs are normal. Temperature, heart rate, brain activity, all normal. He's not freezing. Lisa stared through the window in disbelief. In 300 years of Catherian history, no living being had ever survived contact with one of them. Yet here was a young human engineer holding hands with an alien woman and chatting as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Danny gently squeezed Zara's hand. "Tell me more about your people. How many survivors are there?" Tears flowed down Zara's cheeks, but for the first time in decades they were tears of joy. I do not know exactly. When our worlds fell, some of us escaped in small ships. We scattered across the galaxy, hiding wherever we could. But we could never meet, never help each other because we would freeze each other on contact. How many do you think might still be alive? Perhaps a few hundred, maybe 1,000. We live very long lives when we are not killed. But we live them in complete isolation. She looked at their joined hands in wonder. I had forgotten what it felt like to touch another person. Danny felt her loneliness like a physical weight. He could not imagine spending 50 years without any human contact, watching everyone around you die from a simple touch. "The Void Seekers," he said. "How do we fight them?" Zara's expression grew serious again. "They are not alive in the way you understand life. They are machines, but they are also something more. They exist partially in normal space and partially in dimensions we cannot see. That is why your weapons cannot hurt them. But your freezing power can? Yes, but only through direct contact. The absolute zero effect disrupts their connection to those other dimensions. It forces them back into normal space where they become fragile. But getting close enough to touch them is almost impossible." Amy's voice came through the communication system. "Zara, this is Dr. Harrison. I'm the ship's xenobiologist. Can you explain why Danny isn't affected by your ability?" Zara looked toward the observation window. "I do not understand it myself, Dr. Harrison. In 300 years, no being has ever survived my touch. Your species must have some kind of natural protection that we have never encountered." "Could other humans have the same protection?" Amy asked. "I do not know. Danny is the first I have tested." Outside the medical bay, Lisa was already thinking about the implications. If humans could safely make contact with Catherians, it might be possible to find the other survivors and convince them to help defend Earth against the Void Seekers. But first, they needed to understand why Danny was immune. "Zara," Danny said, "you mentioned that the Void Seekers are coming here. How much time do we have?" "They move slowly through space, but they never stop. Based on the energy signature of your ship and the readings I took before my vessel died, I calculate they will reach your solar system in approximately 6 months. 6 months to prepare for war against machines that can destroy star systems," Danny said grimly. "There may be hope," Zara said, squeezing his hand tighter. "If your people truly are immune to our touch, then perhaps we can work together. The Catherians have knowledge and abilities that could help, and you have something we have not had in centuries." "What's that?" "The ability to stand together instead of alone." Through the observation window, Lisa watched Danny and Zara talking, quietly, their hands still joined. For the first time since the rescue began, she felt a spark of hope. Humanity was facing an impossible enemy, but they had just discovered they had an impossible ally. 3 days after Danny's first contact with Zara, the Meridian's long-range sensors began screaming warnings. Charlie Wilson called Captain Martinez to the bridge at 2 a.m, his voice shaking with fear. "Captain, you need to see this immediately," he said over the ship's communication system. Lisa arrived on the bridge still wearing her sleep clothes. The main screen showed empty space, but the sensor readings told a different story. Massive objects were approaching at speeds that should have been impossible. "How many?" Lisa asked, though she dreaded the answer. 7 confirmed contacts, Captain. Each one is roughly the size of a small moon. They're moving at about 30% light speed, but they're slowing down as they get closer. Amy Harrison arrived moments later, followed by Jake Murphy and several other crew members. They all stared at the sensor data in disbelief. "That's them," came a quiet voice from behind them. They turned to see Danny and Zara entering the bridge together. Over the past 3 days, Danny had barely left her side, and she had begun to look less pale and frightened. "The Void Seekers?" Lisa asked. Zara nodded, her purple eyes fixed on the main screen. 7 ships means this is a harvesting fleet. They have come to consume your solar system. How long until they reach us? Jake demanded. Zara studied the sensor readings with an expression Danny had learned meant she was doing complex calculations in her head. At their current speed, approximately 18 hours until they reach this position. But they will not attack us first. They always go for the largest energy sources. Earth, Amy whispered. No, Zara said. Your sun. They will consume your star first, then work their way outward through the planets. It provides them with the most energy in the shortest time. Lisa felt her blood turn cold. Can we warn Earth? Already done, Captain, Charlie reported. I sent an emergency transmission as soon as the contacts appeared. But at this distance, it will take 6 hours for the message to reach Earth, and another 6 for any response. Danny squeezed Zara's hand. You said your people fought these things for 300 years. There has to be some way to stop them. Zara looked at the frozen bodies that had been moved to one corner of the bridge, covered with sheets. Dr. Brooks and the 3 technicians served as a constant reminder of her deadly nature. We tried everything, she said sadly. Nuclear weapons, antimatter bombs, plasma cannons, nothing worked. The Void Seekers exist partially in other dimensions. Most attacks simply pass through them without causing damage. But your freezing ability works on them, Amy said. You told us that. Yes, but only through direct contact. The absolute zero effect forces them back into normal space where they become vulnerable. The problem is getting close enough to touch them without being consumed first. On the main screen, the 7 massive objects began to take shape as they slowed down. They looked like enormous crystals made of black glass, constantly shifting and changing form. Dark energy flickered around them like lightning, and space itself seemed to bend in their presence. They're beautiful, Danny said quietly, then immediately felt ashamed of the comment. That is what makes them so dangerous, Zara replied. They draw you in with their beauty, and by the time you realize the danger, it is too late. The largest of the Void Seekers suddenly changed course, heading directly toward the meridian. Jake immediately went to the weapons console, but Lisa stopped him. Wait, she ordered. Zara, what does it mean when they change course like that? They have detected something unusual, Zara said, her voice filled with worry. Probably me. Cytherians have a unique energy signature that they recognize. Are they coming to attack us? No. They will want to capture me alive. The Void Seekers use Cytherians as weapons. They force us to freeze other species for them, then consume the frozen bodies for energy. Danny felt anger rising in his chest. They've been using your people as slaves. For 300 years, Zara confirmed. It is why so few of us remain free. Most Cytherians are trapped on Void Seeker ships, forced to kill for them or watch their friends die. The approaching Void Seeker ship filled the main screen now. It was easily 20 times larger than the Meridian, and its crystalline surface pulsed with dark energy. Suddenly, tendrils of black light reached out from the ship and attached themselves to the Meridian's hull. Hull breach in sections 4 and 7, Jake reported. No, wait. The hull isn't broken. Those things are draining power directly through the metal. The ship's lights began to flicker as the Void Seeker drew energy from their systems. Emergency power kicked in, but even that began to weaken almost immediately. Captain, we're losing. Life support, Charlie called out. If this continues, we'll be dead in 20 minutes. Lisa made a command decision. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. No, Zara said firmly. The escape pods will be consumed just like the ship, and even if you escape, the Void Seekers will follow you to Earth. You cannot run from them. Danny looked at her with understanding. You have an idea. Yes, but it is very dangerous. I can use my ability to freeze the energy tendrils. If I touch the spots where they are connected to your ship, I can cut the connection. That means going outside the ship, Jake said. In space with no protection. Cytherians do not need to breathe like you do, Zara explained. I can survive in space for several hours. But you'd be exposed to the Void Seeker ship, Amy pointed out. What if it tries to capture you? Then you must be ready to help me, Zara said, looking directly at Danny. I have an idea, but I need you to trust me completely. Danny nodded without hesitation. What do you need me to do? I want to try something that has never been attempted before. I want to see if I can channel my freezing ability through you instead of using it directly. Channel it through me? How? Physical contact allows me to share my power with you temporarily. If it works, you could carry my ability inside your body and use it as a weapon against the Void Seekers. Lisa stared at them. That's insane. We don't know what that kind of power transfer might do to a human body. We don't have time to find out safely, Danny said. The ship is dying and Earth is next. If there's even a chance this could work, we have to try it. Amy was already running calculations in her head. The energy transfer could kill you, Danny. Or worse, it could change your cellular structure permanently. What do you mean, worse? Danny asked. I mean, you might survive the transfer but be changed forever. You could end up like Zara, unable to touch anyone without freezing them. Danny looked at Zara, then at the dying ship around them, then at the massive Void Seeker vessel, attached to their hull like a parasite. If it means saving Earth, that's a risk I'm willing to take. Zara squeezed his hand and he felt something strange happen. A cold sensation began to spread up his arm, but it didn't hurt. Instead, it felt like power flowing into him, filling him with energy he had never experienced before. I can feel it, he said in amazement. It's like ice, but it's alive. The power is dangerous, Zara warned. If you lose control, you could freeze everyone on this ship. Then I won't lose control, Danny said simply. The ship shuddered as more energy tendrils attached to the hull. They were running out of time. Danny, if this works, you'll need to get outside and touch the connection points, Zara explained. The moment you make contact, the freezing effect should travel back through the tendrils to the Void Seeker ship itself. And if it doesn't work, then we all die, and Earth dies with us. Danny looked around the bridge at his friends and crewmates. These people had become his family over the years of deep space exploration. The thought of the Void Seekers reaching Earth and doing to humanity what they had done to the Cytherians filled him with determination. Let's do this, he said. Zara placed both hands on his shoulders, and the cold power flowing through him doubled, then tripled. Danny gritted his teeth as his body adapted to carrying the freezing energy of absolute zero. He could feel his cellular structure changing, becoming something new and dangerous. Remember, Zara said as the power transfer completed, you are carrying the hopes of two species now. Do not let fear control the power. Let love guide it. Danny nodded, feeling the strange cold energy coursing through his veins like liquid lightning. He was no longer entirely human, but he was still himself, and he was ready to fight back. Danny stood in the airlock wearing a spacesuit that felt too small for his changing body. The cold power flowing through him made every breath feel like ice crystals forming in his lungs. Through the small window, he could see the massive Void Seeker ship attached to the Meridian like a giant parasite. Danny, can you hear me? Lisa's voice came through his helmet radio. Yes, Captain. I'm ready to go outside. Your life signs are still stable, Amy reported from the medical station. But your body temperature has dropped to 15 degrees below normal. Are you sure you can do this? Danny flexed his hands inside the thick gloves. He could feel Zara's power moving through his fingers like cold lightning. I can feel exactly where the energy tendrils are connected to our ship. It's like they're calling to me. Remember, Zara's voice came through the communication system. The moment you touch a connection point, the freezing effect will travel back through the tendril to the main ship. But you must touch all 7 connections at the same time, or the Void Seeker will simply grow new ones. How am I supposed to touch 7 different spots at the same time? Danny asked. The power inside you will spread to anything you're touching. If you can make contact with the ship's hull, the freezing effect will travel through the metal to all the connection points at once. Danny nodded, though nobody could see him inside the helmet. Understood. Opening the airlock now. The outer door slid open and Danny stepped into space. The sight that greeted him took his breath away. The Void Seeker ship was even more beautiful and terrifying up close. Its crystalline surface shifted constantly, showing glimpses of other dimensions. Through its transparent walls, dark energy flowed across its surface like living water. 7 thick tendrils of black light connected the alien ship to various parts of the Meridian's hull. Danny could feel them draining the life from his home, pulling energy and warmth out of everything they touched. He activated his suit's thrusters and moved toward the nearest connection point. As he got closer, he could see that the tendril wasn't just energy. There were solid parts to it, like veins of dark crystal running through the light. "Danny, be careful," Jake's voice warned through the radio. "We're reading massive energy fluctuations from that thing. If it decides to attack you directly, there's nothing we can do to help." "I know," Danny replied. He reached out with one gloved hand toward the connection point. "Here goes nothing." The moment his glove touched the tendril, several things happened at once. The dark energy immediately began flowing into him instead of out of the ship. The cold power Zara had given him met the alien energy head-on, and the collision sent shockwaves through both ships. Danny screamed as the competing energies tore through his body. He felt like he was being frozen and burned at the same time. But instead of pulling away, he pressed his other hand against the Meridian's hull. The freezing effect spread instantly through the ship's metal structure. Frost formed along the hull, in patterns that looked like lightning bolts racing toward each of the 7 connection points. When the ice reached the tendrils, they began to shatter like glass. "It's working," Amy shouted over the radio. "Power levels are returning to normal." But Danny wasn't done. As the tendrils broke apart, he felt something else happening. The Void Seeker ship itself was being affected by the freezing power. Cracks appeared in its crystalline surface, spreading outward from where the broken tendrils had been attached. "Danny, get back inside," Lisa ordered. "The alien ship is becoming unstable." But Danny couldn't move. The power flowing through him had grown beyond his control. He was no longer just carrying Zara's ability. He had become something new, something that existed partially in the same dimensions as the Void Seekers. Through his changed perception, he could see inside the alien ship. There were dozens of creatures trapped inside, not just Catherians, but members of other species he didn't recognize. All of them were frozen in crystal prisons, being used as living batteries to power the ship's weapons. "There are people inside that thing," he gasped into his radio. "Prisoners. They're still alive." On the bridge of the Meridian, Zara suddenly stood up from her chair. "Danny is right. I can sense them now that he's connected to the ship. There are 43 Catherians inside, and maybe twice as many members of other species." "Can we save them?" Lisa asked. "Not unless someone goes inside the ship," Zara replied, "and that would be suicide for anyone except Danny." Danny was already thinking the same thing. The cracks in the Void Seeker ship were spreading, but they were also sealing themselves as the alien vessel adapted to his attack. He had maybe minutes before it would be fully repaired and ready to consume the Meridian again. "I'm going inside," he announced. "Danny, no," Lisa shouted. "That's an order." "Sorry, Captain, sometimes you have to disobey orders to do the right thing." Danny pushed away from the Meridian's hull and flew toward the largest crack in the Void Seeker ship. As he approached, he could feel the alien vessel trying to repair itself around him. The crystal walls moved like living tissue, attempting to close the gap before he could enter. He pressed both hands against the edges of the crack and released more of Zara's power. The freezing effect widened the opening, and he slipped inside, just before it could seal shut. The interior of the ship was like nothing he had ever seen. Corridors made of dark crystal stretched in directions that seemed to bend space itself. The walls pulsed with energy, and he could hear a low humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Danny, we've lost your signal." Amy's voice came faintly through his helmet radio. "The ship's structure is blocking our communications." He was on his own now. Following his instincts and the cold power guiding him, Danny moved through the alien corridors toward the strongest concentration of life signs. The frozen prisoners were being held in the ship's central chamber. When he found them, Danny's heart broke. Dozens of beings from across the galaxy stood frozen in crystal tubes, their faces locked in expressions of terror and pain. Among them, he recognized the pale blue skin and silver hair of Catherians like Zara. But these prisoners weren't just frozen. They were being slowly drained of life energy to power the ship. Danny could see streams of light flowing from their bodies into the ship's walls. He placed his hands on the nearest crystal tube and released the freezing power. The tube shattered instantly, and the Catherian inside collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Who are you?" the alien asked in the same accented English that Zara spoke. "I'm here to help," Danny said, moving to the next tube. "My name is Danny Walsh. I'm working with one of your people, Zara." The Catherian's purple eyes widened. "Zara lives? We thought she was dead." "She's alive, and she's safe on my ship," Danny said, freeing another prisoner. "But we need to get all of you out of here before this ship repairs itself." Working as fast as he could, Danny shattered tube after tube. Each time he used the freezing power, he felt it growing stronger inside him. But he also felt his human body struggling to contain the alien energy. His hands were turning blue like Zara's skin, and frost was forming on the inside of his helmet. As the last prisoner was freed, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The Void Seeker had detected what was happening and was taking action to stop him. "The ship is sealing all exits," one of the freed Catherians warned. "We are trapped." Danny looked around at the 43 faces staring at him with hope and fear. These beings had been prisoners for who knows how long, used as weapons against their will. He wasn't going to let them down now. "Then we make our own exit," he said, placing both hands against the ship's outer wall. The freezing power exploded outward from his touch, creating a massive hole in the ship's hull. Emergency force fields tried to activate, but Danny's power froze them before they could form. "Everyone stay close to me," he ordered. "I can extend a protective field around all of us, but you need to trust me completely." As the group of rescued prisoners huddled together, Danny wrapped them all in a bubble of controlled freezing energy that would protect them from the vacuum of space. Then, with all his remaining strength, he pushed them through the hole and toward the meridian. Behind them, the damaged Void Seeker ship began to collapse in on itself, its crystalline structure unable to maintain stability after losing so much energy and taking so much damage. But Danny knew this was just the beginning. There were still 6 more Void Seeker ships out there, and they were heading straight for Earth. The rescued prisoners filled the Meridian's cargo bay, 43 Catherians and dozens of other alien species that Danny had never seen before. Some looked like tall birds with silver feathers, others resembled walking trees with golden bark. All of them had one thing in common. They had been used as weapons by the Void Seekers for years, maybe decades. Danny sat in the medical bay while Amy examined his transformed body. His skin had turned pale blue like Zara's, and his eyes now had flecks of purple in them. The freezing power flowed through him constantly, making the air around him cold enough to see his breath. "How do you feel?" Amy asked, keeping her distance as she ran her scanners. "Different," Danny replied honestly. "Stronger, but also like I'm not entirely human anymore." Zara sat beside him, one of the few people who could safely touch him now. "You have become something new," she said softly. "Part human, part Catherian, part something else entirely." "Will it get worse?" Danny asked. "I do not know. You are the first being to ever survive this kind of transformation." Captain Martinez entered the medical bay with a grim expression. "Danny, I need you to see something. The 6 remaining Void Seeker ships have changed course. They're not heading for the sun anymore." Danny followed her to the bridge where the main screen showed the alien vessels moving in a new formation. Instead of spreading out to consume the solar system, they were gathering together into a tight group. "What does that mean?" Lisa asked. One of the rescued Catherians, an elderly male named Elder Corin, stepped forward. "It means they are preparing for a final attack. When Void Seekers lose one of their ships, they combine their remaining forces for a single overwhelming assault." "Against what target?" Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Earth, Elder Corrin replied. They will ignore everything else and focus all their power on destroying your homeworld. It is their way of making sure no resistance can grow strong enough to threaten them again. Amy pulled up calculations on her computer. At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in 14 hours. Even if we sent a warning now, there wouldn't be time to evacuate. Danny felt the cold power inside him respond to his emotions. Frost began forming on the walls around him as his anger grew. How many people live on Earth now? About 12 billion. Lisa answered quietly. The number hit Danny like a physical blow. 12 billion innocent people who had no idea death was coming for them from the stars. He thought about his family back on Earth, his friends from the academy, everyone he had ever known or cared about. There has to be something we can do, he said. Elder Corrin shook his head sadly. 6 Void Seeker ships working together have enough power to crack a planet in half. Even if we could warn Earth's defense forces, their weapons cannot hurt the ships. But our weapons can, Danny said, looking at Zara and the other Catherians. We proved that when we destroyed the first ship. 1 ship, yes, Elder Corrin agreed. But 6 ships together are too powerful. They will destroy us before we can get close enough to use our abilities. Danny walked to the main screen and stared at the 6 crystalline ships moving toward Earth. Each one was the size of a small moon, filled with dark energy and ancient malice. The logical part of his mind agreed with Elder Corrin. This was impossible. But the human part of his mind, the part that had volunteered to touch Zara when everyone else was afraid, refused to accept defeat. What if we don't attack them directly? He asked suddenly. What do you mean? Amy asked. Danny turned to face the assembled group of humans and aliens. The Void Seekers get their power from draining energy from other sources, right? Stars, planets, living beings. What if we could cut off their power supply? How? Lisa asked. By freezing space itself around them, Danny said, the idea forming as he spoke. If all of us work together, every Catherian, every human who can, channel the freezing power, we could create a zone of absolute zero around the entire fleet. Elder Corrin stared at him. That would require more power than has ever been attempted. The energy needed would kill everyone involved. Maybe, Danny admitted, but it might also save Earth. Zara stood up from her chair. I will help you try. And I, said another Catherian. Count me in too, added a third. One by one, all 43 rescued Catherians volunteered to join the desperate plan, but Elder Corrin raised a troubling question. Even if we could generate that much power, how would we get close enough to the Void Seeker fleet? They will see us coming and destroy our ship long before we reach them. Amy suddenly spoke up from her science station. What if they didn't see us coming? Everyone turned to look at her. She was studying readings from Danny's transformation, her eyes bright with a new idea. When Danny connected with the Void Seeker ship, he briefly existed in the same dimensions they do. What if we could use that ability to hide from them? Hide. How? Danny asked. By shifting the entire ship partially out of normal space. If we could exist in the same dimensional state as the Void Seekers, we might be able to approach without being detected. Elder Corrin looked skeptical. Such a thing has never been attempted. The power required would be enormous. We have enormous power, Danny pointed out. 43 Catherians, plus whatever I've become. If we all work together, we might be able to pull it off. Lisa looked around at her crew and the alien refugees they had rescued. This is completely insane. We're talking about trying experimental physics with technologies we don't understand, against an enemy that has destroyed entire civilizations. Yes, Danny said simply. But what's the alternative? Let 12 billion people die without trying. To save them? Jake checked his weapons systems. Even if this plan works and we get close to the Void Seeker fleet, how do we make sure the freezing effect actually destroys all 6 ships? Danny smiled grimly. We don't freeze the ships. We freeze the space around them. If we can create a zone of absolute zero large enough to contain the entire fleet, it will force all 6 ships back into normal space simultaneously. Then they'll be vulnerable to conventional weapons. Whose conventional weapons? Lisa asked. Earth's defense forces don't know we're coming. Amy was already working on that problem. I can modify our communications array to send a focused transmission directly to Earth's orbital defense platforms. If we time it right, we can coordinate our attack with theirs. So the plan is to sneak up on 6 moon-sized alien warships using untested dimensional shifting technology, create the largest freezing field in galactic history, and coordinate a simultaneous attack with Earth forces who don't know we exist? Jake summarized. That's about the size of it. Danny agreed. Jake grinned. I love it. When do we start? The next 12 hours were the busiest of Danny's life. The Catherians worked together to teach him how to control and focus his new abilities. Amy and the ship's engineers modified every system on the Meridian to handle the massive power requirements. Lisa coordinated with Charlie to prepare the communication burst that would alert Earth's defenses. As they approached the Void Seeker fleet, Danny stood in the center of the cargo bay surrounded by all 43 Catherians. They formed concentric circles around him, their hands touching to create a network of shared power. Remember, Elder Corrin said, once we begin the dimensional shift, there will be no turning back. We will either succeed completely or die completely. Danny felt the cold power building inside him, amplified by every Catherian in the circle. It was more energy than he had ever imagined possible, enough to freeze entire planets. For Earth, he said quietly. For all the worlds that have fallen to the Void Seekers, Zara added. For the hope that others will not have to live as we have lived, Elder Corrin finished. The power erupted from their joined hands, wrapping around the Meridian and shifting it into the spaces between dimensions. Through the viewports, the stars disappeared, replaced by swirling patterns of light and shadow. They were invisible now, racing toward the Void Seeker fleet on a collision course with destiny. In 6 hours, they would either save Earth or die trying. Danny wouldn't have it any other way.